Well, the Carolina Panthers have Sunday off after their Thursday night matchup against the Houston Texans, where the team moved to 3-0 after a 24-9 victory. Joining us now is host of Locked On Panthers Podcast, Julian Council. Julian, we're going to revisit some of the headlines from that game. The good news, the team is 3-0 for the first time since 2015. The bad news, that win was a costly one as the Panthers lost two very valuable players. Running back Christian McCaffrey, who's out for at least a few weeks due to a strained hamstring, and rookie cornerback J.C. Horn, who's going to miss significant time after breaking 3 bones in his foot. Julian, I know we hear that phrase, next man up, all the time. We saw some of that in the game, but how do you see this playing out long term?
Yeah, I mean, let's start off with Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be out, like you said, for the next couple of weeks, and we're not sure quite how long. Matt Rule ruled out putting him on IR for now, but feasibly he could miss the next 2 or 3 weeks. He definitely will not be there next Sunday against the Cowboys in a game which will tell us a lot about how good the Panthers actually are, finally going up against a team that can match them offensively against their talented defense that's been amazing so far this season. But Chuba Hubbard's going to be the first guy up there at the running back position. Played fairly well, I thought, in the second half. He might not be the receiving back that Christian McCaffrey is, but rushing for 49 yards in the second half. There's a reason why the Panthers drafted him in the 4th round out of Oklahoma State. And the reason is Christian McCaffrey missed 13 games last season. There was always a possibility that he could have an injury like he sustained on Thursday with the hamstring that could keep him out for a period of time. And the Panthers wanted to find somebody that they could lean on to be Christian's backup, not just for this season, but for the next 3 seasons and even longer from that. So hopefully Chuba Hubbard will work out. We'll see. I don't expect him to put up the same production that Christian McCaffrey's put up, but he will have the opportunity. Royce Freeman will also be back there with him. I know the Panthers have worked out guys like Duke Johnson, who probably has the most extensive background of the running backs that they brought in the other day, but it's going to be Chuba Hubbard's show in the backfield. Now, as far as J.C. Horn's injury, getting A.J. Boye back, who missed on Thursday after finally being eligible after missing the first 2 games of the season with a PED suspension that he served 4 games last year when he was still at the Denver Broncos, he should come in and be the opposite cornerback, opposite of Dante Jackson. Now, past him, there's a possibility that maybe Corn Elder gets a call. Rashawn Melvin's played a lot of snaps the last 2 weeks against the Saints and the Texans on Thursday night, so he's probably the next guy up. And then maybe they look for a veteran out there in the free agency market. It's not going to be simple, though. Losing McCaffrey, losing J.C. Horn, 2 vital pieces to this Panthers offense and defense, respectively, is going to hurt the team for the next coming weeks, and hopefully it won't be too big of an impact as the Panthers have a 3-0 start and look pretty damn good so far.
All right, you mentioned that veteran free agent. A lot of talk right now on social media that the team is talking with Richard Sherman. Obviously, we know he has a history from Seattle with Panthers GM Scott Fitterer. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. Do you see him coming to Carolina?
I don't know. I honestly think it would be a great scheme fit, considering he has the length and the range that the corner mold that they had back in Seattle, which is why they got a guy like J.C. Horn in the draft, why they brought Rashawn Melvin, and what they see in Dante Jackson and Keith Taylor, who they drafted in the 6th round out of Washington. So he fits what Phil Snow, the defensive coordinator here in Carolina, wants to do. The problem is he's got a lot of mileage on those legs, and I'm not quite sure Richard Sherman can come in and be the kind of lockdown corner that he was for all those years in Seattle. And back when he was with the 49ers, or the last time we saw him play a significant game, he was in the Super Bowl, where one of the most deciding plays in that game was Sammy Watkins beating him on the outside for the first down that locked up that game for the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. So I don't know if Richard Sherman's going to come in here and have a major impact, but in terms of a guy who Scott Fitterer is comfortable with, someone who can fit the scheme and someone who can be a veteran presence, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. So I'm on board bringing Richard Sherman. I would just caution fans to not expect him to go out there and be the Richard Sherman that we saw from 5 years ago back when he was with the Seahawks.
All right, let's talk offense. Quarterback Sam Darnold has now thrown for 888 yards this season. That's the best stretch of his career. And then in that game against Houston, he completed nearly 68% of his passes, threw for 304 yards, and ran in a pair of touchdowns. So I have to ask, are his old habits in the past? How do you feel about his start in Carolina?
I think he's had a fantastic start. Everything that you would hope to have seen from Sam Darnold in the first 3 weeks, he's been great. He's only turned the ball over 2 times. He had the fumble week 1 against the Jets in the red zone that was costly, but really didn't hurt them because of how well the defense played. Then week 2 against the Saints, you talk about the old habits. One of the old habits popped up where he was trying to do too much as he was trying to dump the ball up to Chuba Hubbard instead of taking the sack. Throws one of the worst interceptions you're going to see all season long from any quarterback in the National Football League. But on Thursday, in the second half, without Christian McCaffrey, how well he played in that football game, I think it was moxie is how Matt Rule characterized the way he played. He's got chutzpah, too. Sam Darnold was awesome on Thursday night. That does not mean that Sam Darnold necessarily has proven that he's the answer here in Carolina, but through 3 weeks, for someone who is extremely skeptical about Sam Darnold coming to Carolina and why the Panthers decided to take a risk on a guy who struggled in New York, I have been thoroughly impressed and love everything that I've seen from Sam Darnold. But there are more teams to be played and more games to be played against, more teams to play against, more games to be played in the upcoming weeks that will answer more of the questions. Because quite frankly, the teams that they played so far haven't really posed that much of a challenge. Either way, you have to look at who he's played against so far and how he's performed. He's performed to the level that everyone here in Carolina would have hoped that he would have, and he's offered a lot of encouragement at the position where the Carolina Panthers are hoping that this guy can actually be their franchise quarterback for the next 10, 15 years.
All right, you just touched on it. A lot of people kind of being a little iffy, not giving the Panthers too much credit, saying their schedule so far hasn't been challenging. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
A little bit of both. Like week one, it's the Jets. We all went into that expecting the Panthers to handily beat the Jets. Now, 19-14 isn't the most convincing victory on paper, but when you watch the game, at no point in time did Zach Wilson, that Jets offense, seem to have the Panthers in threat of losing that game, especially in the second half. The defense was phenomenal. Then week two against the Saints, I think a lot of us thought that New Orleans was going to pose a challenge to the Carolina Panthers. But based off of the issues that they had with being displaced because of Hurricane Ida and being down to Fort Worth, and then the coaches who had COVID and the outbreak that they had in their staff and then missing the game, and that, of course, had to mess up preparation. Yeah, Jameis Winston played and majority of their top players played, but they still didn't have Michael Thomas. In the secondary, didn't have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, didn't have Marshawn Lattimore. There were some reasonable excuses for why the Saints performed as poorly as they did, but the Panthers honestly dominated that game. And then the Texans were another team Thursday night that no one expected to really be any good this season. Without Tyrod Taylor, starting rookie quarterback, and Davis Mills, the Panthers have certainly caught a break in terms of injury luck against their opponents. Now on their end, the Panthers no longer have J.C. Horn, at least for most of the season, if not the rest of the season. They're not going to have Christian McCaffrey for a couple weeks, so it will balance itself out. So I do agree that they have not played the tightest schedule so far, but it doesn't matter. They always say the old cliche is it's tough to win in the NFL. They're 3-0 right now, and the way things are going with the Rams and the Bucs, it looks like they're going to be atop of the division after 3 weeks. It doesn't really matter who they play. They can only play the teams on their schedule. It will certainly get tougher down the road, but right now, everyone should be excited about 3-0 and not even care who they played against. Now, they'll find out later on in the season when it gets a little bit tougher whether the 3-0 was real or the Carolina Panthers were just kind of a middle-of-the-road team. So I'm sure it'll eventually balance itself out, but right now, I don't think I'm all that concerned about the schedule, just more concerned about the fact that this team has played good football and they've won so far, and Sam Darnold has looked like the guy that you wanted to see when the Panthers traded for him back in April.
All right, Julian, as always, we appreciate your time. We'll see if the Panthers can go 4-0. Their next game is going to be next Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys, and as always, you'll be breaking that one down with us.
Absolutely, Ashley. Glad to be talking to you this week instead of Nick.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Nick? All right.